Get excited, everybody, because the NFL regular season, after a long wait, is finally back. We're going to be talking about every single game in the week one slate, talking about the odds and my prediction for each game. If there's a particular game you're looking for, feel free to go ahead and jump around and skip right to it and get to that analysis. But before we jump into all the games, don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it. Let me know in the comment section what teams you're picking and what your favorite bets are this week, and definitely subscribe if you like the content so you can keep getting this week in and week out. The first game we're going to talk about is the first game of the season, game of the week for sure, and maybe could be the game of the season. Really good matchup here with the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Rams, hosting the current Super Bowl favorites, Buffalo Bills. Really intriguing matchup here, as not often you see the reigning champs at home as underdogs. This line originally started at the Rams -1, but the public has just been hammering the Bills, moving the line over 3 points to the Bills as the road team are now the favorites by 2.5 points. It's not crazy to see why, just because obviously MVP favorite right now, Josh Allen, has looked never better in his career. Obviously, he's the focal point in the passing game in this Bills offense, but also such a huge part of the run offense in Buffalo too. As he becomes more of a franchise quarterback, and they keep paying the guy, they might wean off his legs a little bit. Definitely the addition of James Cook in the draft, highly drafted running back out of Georgia, will help them and help augment this run game. But that's something that the Bills definitely needed a little bit of help on. But with how good Allen's been, and they can get by with passing the ball the majority of the time. The real strength of this Bills team is actually the defense. While the Bills did have the number 3 scoring offense in football last year, their defense was the best in the league in points per game allowed. And that's really due to how good their secondary is. Getting Trey White, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and then best safety duo in football, in my opinion, with Pryor and Micah Hyde back there. Really tough to get anything going in the pass game against this defense. And that bodes well when you're playing a team like the Rams, who have such a potent passing offense. According to Pro Football Focus, Rams had the most effective passing offense. Obviously, when you got a guy like Cooper Kupp out there, it makes it a lot easier after winning the Triple Crown and receiving. But while this Rams offense is really proficient in the passing game, they really lack in the run game, specifically running the ball between the tackles. Last year, the Rams had the second worst efficient rush offense in football, and I think that's ultimately going to be their downfall this game. When you have such a one-dimensional passing attack, one-dimensional offense that leans so heavy on the passing game, that's really tough to beat a team that is so well balanced like the Buffalo Bills, especially like I mentioned, when the Bills' defensive strength is that secondary. So I think that while the Rams do have a good defense, the Bills just too balanced all around, really great offense, the best defense statistically last year in terms of points. I think that's enough for the Bills to cover this 2.5 point spread and show the world why they are the Super Bowl favorites. Moving on to another pretty solid game of playoff matchups here. Buccaneers on the road going to Dallas to face the Cowboys. Really like the Buccaneers this year, and Tom Brady coming out of retirement to take care of business in what probably will be his final year, facing a team in Dallas that I think is on the opposite direction of the Bucs. I think they're trending downwards. I think they're not going to win the division this year, and I think they're going to see some struggles after some losses, especially the key loss being Amari Cooper at wide receiver, leaving this wide receiver room a little more thin. This is a Cowboys team that I don't think will be able to repeat what they did last year. Cowboys last year led the league in defensive interceptions and turnovers at 26. That's a stat that's usually hard to replicate year over year. Obviously, you got Trayvon Diggs there as a turnover machine. I don't think he's going to be able to have another year like that. That guy regularly gets burned, lets up 100 receiving yards a game to the opposing team's number 1 receiver. I think there's a lot of holes in the secondary in Dallas, and they're not going to be able to mask those with turnovers this year and probably this game against Tom Brady and a great Bucs offense that, again, very well balanced, that I think will pick apart this Dallas defense. Buccaneers, just like the Bills, very well balanced, great run game. Leonard Fournette between the tackles, with Tristan Wirfs being one of the game's best tackles. Fournette also a pretty good receiving threat out of the backfield. You got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who's supposed to be healthy for week 1, who they were 2 of the top 10 players in wide receiver efficiency last year. Only wide receiver tandem to, boast 2 receivers in the top 10. And then adding Julio Jones to replace Antonio Brown is a great addition. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a very big piece for this offense. And then on defense, really young, flashy secondary. Antoine Winfield Jr. at safety, one of the game's best young players there. And then the real strength for this Buccaneers team has long been their front seven. They're stifling opposing teams' run game with, Levante David, uh, White, and Shaq Barrett, Vita Vey, and now Akeem Hicks on the defensive tackle positions, going to plug up the middle, allowing for guys to get, in the pass rush and disrupt the quarterback too. Really like just how well-rounded this Buccaneers team is, and I think this -1.5 looks like a steal. Little bit aware of the line because it seems too good to be true. I definitely think the Bucs are going to win this game, but it'd be something I hesitate to bet on because the line looks too easy, if that makes any sense. But I just don't think the Cowboys are all that great this year, and I do think the Buccaneers are going to win the Super Bowl this year, and I think they're going to get it done in Week 1. Before we go on to the next game, just want to remind you guys about our partnership with Prize Picks. If you sign up and use our code PROPICS, they'll match your deposit up to $100. That's them just giving you $100 right now. And I'm telling you, this is something you want to take advantage of, especially before Week 1. You can see here that I joined in September of last year, so about a year ago, and have won over almost $1,000 with just $100 initial deposit. Haven't put a dime more in, and it's for reasons like this. You see that they're giving you a free win in Week 1. Stafford throws over half a yard here. That's a win. So they're giving you that. They're giving you $100 when you sign up with our code PROPICS. This is something that you got to take advantage of because these promos, when they come around, are just money-making machines. Moving on to Pittsburgh on the road against divisional opponent, the Bengals, who shocked everyone last year, made it a Super Bowl run, and came up just a little bit short against the Rams. There's no doubt about it that this Bengals offense is absolutely stacked, especially at the wide receiver position with T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Ja'Marr Chase. Add that a great dual threat running back in Joe Mixon with Joe Burrow, who's just been incredible in his first few seasons. Very scary passing offense. The big thing about this Bengals team last year was their offensive line. If you watched any games, you saw Joe Burrow constantly running for his life, as he is in this picture. What the Bengals did this offseason was perfect. They went out and got 3 key offensive linemen, the biggest one being Lyle Collins, a very athletic, dynamic guard coming over from Dallas. When he's healthy, he's one of the game's top guards, just really being effective in both the rushing and passing game. So much improved offensive line, great offense. Average, maybe a little bit subpar defense, but, the offensive output definitely makes up for that. But this Steelers team is also scary, getting, Mitch Trubisky and Pickett at quarterback. Very talented offense in its own right. All the Steelers team really needs is a good quarterback, and they are instantly a playoff threat with how good, Najee Harris, young running back, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, now George Pickens at wide receiver. Their defense is one of the best in the league. So you got Hayward, who's the best defensive tackle according to Pro Football Focus. TJ Watt, who's possibly the best defensive end. Minkah Fitzpatrick at safety. Guys all around. Devin Bush. A ton of great talent on defense. If the quarterback position for the Steelers can turn it around, they're going to have a really good year. So I think this game is going to be closer than you think. And the Bengals are going to win this game. They definitely should. But the Steelers +6.5 is looking really good. The thing that's going to maybe stifle them is just how good this Bengals passing offense is. Again, loving what Joe Burrow was doing last year. It actually amazed me to find out he had the second best passer rating in football last year behind Aaron Rodgers, who ended up winning the MVP. Even more impressive, Joe Burrow had the highest on-target throwing percentage in the NFL, all while being second in the league in throwing aggressiveness. That's throwing deep balls, throwing into tight windows. So this dude is insanely accurate, and it's not only just throwing dink and dunk plays like Jared Goff does in that Lions offense. This guy's pushing the ball downfield, finding his elite receivers, and being insanely accurate. So look for Joe Burrow to keep picking apart defenses this year and to win this game at home to open up the season. Just mentioned Jared Goff and the Lions. They're hosting the Eagles, who I'm very excited to watch this season after some really big offseason additions, getting A.J. Brown, one of my favorite receivers, and then James Bradbury, one of the game's best cornerbacks last year, to really up that defensive secondary. This line started out at Eagles -4.5, and the public has been piling onto the Lions, not as much as they have the Bills, but moving this line 1 point in the Lions' favor. And I think this 3.5 is a pretty good line. These are two teams that we really don't know what to expect last year. I don't think that the Lions are as bad as their record showed last year, and I do think they're going to take some step up. DeAndre Swift, their running back, really good threat out of the backfield. Amon-Ra St. Brown is supposed to step up at wide receiver this year for the Lions, and TJ Hockenson is a top 5 tight end in this league. You get Jeff Okudah coming back from injury, former top 3 pick at cornerback out of Ohio State, and just a solid bend don't break defensive unit overall for the Lions. On the Eagles side of things, getting Devonta Smith, second-year receiver, to not have to be covered by the number one cornerback, I think is going to be huge for his development, as a lot of the spotlight will be on A.J. Brown on the other side of that receiver position. Jalen Hurts being one of the better dual threat quarterbacks in the league. If he can just get his accuracy down, it's going to help having A.J. Brown on the team. If he can get his throws down and start hitting those plays that he should and can make, then this offense is going to be really scary. They got a couple great guys from Georgia in the draft, one being Jordan Davis to bolster that defensive line next to Fletcher Cox. And like I said, Bradbury as the addition at cornerback is going to help what I think is already an above average secondary unit. So I think the Eagles are going to win this game. I think the Eagles are going to have a great season. I think the Eagles are going to win the NFC East. But this game might be a little bit closer than you expect, just because the Lions have a grit factor that you cannot measure. But Eagles are liking this game and going to have a good season for them, I believe. Just talked about how that game might be closer than you would expect. This game might be the biggest blowout, should be the biggest blowout in week one, and might not be worth watching for too long, as the Colts, one of the more balanced teams in football, especially around the front seven offensive line and defensive line, take on the Texans, who were one of the worst teams in the league last year, especially on defense. Last year, the Texans were the only team to be in the bottom five in yards allowed per game in both rushing and passing defense. That's just simply not a winning formula when your defense can't stop anybody, let alone this great offensive line that is blocking the way for Jonathan Taylor, the game's best, at least power running back, in my opinion, as the power of a Derrick Henry and the elusiveness of a guy like, let's say, Dalvin Cook, and just can make everyone on the other team miss. Expect for Jonathan Taylor to run all over this Texans defense. I think his over-unders at like going to be around like 100, 105. Take the over on that anyways. They're just going to feed Taylor the ball this game. With new quarterback Matt Ryan, you're not really trying to throw him to the wolves week one. Let him get some comfort around this offense and be able to lean on the run game and that offensive line. I'm not expecting to be watching much of this game, to be honest, because I expect the Colts to just literally run the ball all over the Texans. I would say take Colts -8, but this is a really big line to be betting on a road favorite against a divisional opponent. That's always a scary spot that I try to stay away from in gambling and in survivor leagues. So I'm not going to touch this game in terms of betting, but I do think the Colts should, on paper, just steamroll the Texans here. Another favored team on the road against divisional opponent. You got the new look Saints, especially on offense, taking on the new look Falcons on offense too. I really think the Falcons are going to be a pitiful team this year. They obviously lost their number one receiver due to that gambling allegation with Ridley, who's out for this season. Losing Matt Ryan to the aforementioned Colts. Now Marcus Mariota taking the helm there, who I really don't believe him, especially now in the passing game. Taking on a Saints team that, they're getting a lot of guys back from injury, especially on offense. Jameis Winston, who, has sparks of greatness every now and then and sparks of, a lot of turnover prone. But Alvin Kamara coming back from injury too. Didn't play a ton of games last season just due to his health. Michael Thomas, last time we saw him, he was leading the league in receptions and one of the game's best receivers. If he can get back to anything close to that, that's going to be a huge upgrade. Jarvis Landry as a slot receiver, going back to Louisiana. And then you getting Chris Olave, stud wide receiver out of Ohio State in the first round. So that wide receiving core addition is going to be huge for the Saints team, because last year their wide receivers was a completely different look. And that trio last year led the league in drops in the NFL. These sure-handed guys are bringing over Mike Thomas and Jarvis Landry are going to really help the Saints offense. Obviously, Kamara, great receiving threat out of the backfield in his own right. And the Saints defense that has always been very good in the fronts, honestly good all around, led by Dennis Allen, who was the defensive coordinator, who is now the head coach. I really like the talent that the Saints have all over the football field this year. Don't love how Sean Payton's not there. I really liked him as head coach, really believed in everything that he did there. But, disciple Dennis Allen, who's been underneath Payton for a long time, can hopefully, replicate some of the magic that he had there in New Orleans. Expect the Saints to win this game, and I think by more than 5. I would be betting this -5.5 again or -5 if it were not for them being on the road and against a divisional opponent. But all things in my mind point to a Saints blowout here. Another blowout game, potentially at least, according to the spread, is the Ravens and Lamar Jackson entering a contract year, taking on the New York Jets. With a little scare with Zach Wilson in the preseason game. We'll see if he will play in week one, and if he'll even be, if he does, how healthy he will be. Regardless who lines up under center for this Jets team, last year the Jets led the league in percentage passages that were poor throws, meaning that no matter who's lining up there, they're throwing balls are uncatchable or very, very difficult, not on the money as it is. So it doesn't really matter if it's Zach Wilson or not. The quarterback situation in New York is pretty bleak, especially going up against an incredible Saints or Ravens secondary here that is much improved to last year with a couple key additions in the offseason and a couple key guys coming back from injury, those being Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters at cornerback, the best cornerback tandem in the NFL, in my opinion. Then they got one of the best safeties in football coming over from the Saints and Marcus Williams. And with their first pick in the NFL, their first round pick in the NFL draft, they got Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. So I think with all those guys coming back, either in the offseason signings or just from health reasons, I think that instantly propels this Ravens team into a top 5 secondary, if not even better than that. And this Ravens team is a team that missed the second most amount of games last year due to injury, obviously from those cornerbacks I just mentioned. But Lamar Jackson wasn't healthy all season. J.K. Dobbins was out for the entire season too. Getting a lot of key guys back on talent. You know, they're going to be hurting the passing game like they always are, but I'm looking for Rashad Bateman to step up this year in the team. He was also hurt a lot of last year. But this is also a Ravens team that doesn't need to rely on the passing game to succeed. The year that Lamar Jackson won MVP, you know, the guy was running all over defenses behind, you know, a solid offensive line and a good running back too, running that read option offense that they do. So I think that even with the lack of potentially the passing game in Baltimore, I think Lamar Jackson and the running game they have in place is good enough to beat up on bad teams like the Jets and beat up a lot of teams this year. I'm looking for the Ravens to win this AFC North division and have a great year. And to win the AFC North, they're going to have to beat bad teams like the Jets. So I'm loving the Ravens, like the -7, and I'm going to tease that down to make it even safer. But love the Ravens in this game and this season. This game with the Patriots and the Dolphins is going to be close, as the spread indicates. Last year, the Dolphins took both games against New England, which shocked me personally. In 2 games, I think the Patriots should have won. Seems like Bill Belichick really knows how to stifle Tua Tagovailoa and this Dolphins offense when he plays them. I think it's going to be a close game. I really don't know which side to pick here because on the one hand, you know, the Dolphins got Tyreek Hill. They put him in with second-year receiver Jalen Waddle, and that's already a good wide receiver tandem in its own right. Mike Gesicki, pretty good receiving tight end there too. So the passing attack in Miami should be pretty potent this year. It's all up to Tua to you know, lift this team up and start playing to the potential that is expected upon him. Pretty solid defense, average defense, I'd say actually in Miami, but two great cornerbacks in Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. So that's going to help you know, shut down the Patriots passing offense. But the Patriots don't really care about passing the ball too much. They love building a solid O-line, having running back by committee and running the ball down your throats and making the quarterback position as easy as possible for whoever is lining up under center. And what I thought was interesting last year is the Patriots, despite, you know, rookie quarterback Mac Jones, actually had the second highest percentage of drives that ended up in scores last year. And not only that, they were sixth in points per drive. So not only are they scoring highly efficient in scoring when they get the ball in their hands on offense, but they're putting up a lot of touchdowns as well. So that's gonna help them beat a team like the Dolphins that has a perceivingly good offense. So what I like here is, you know, the over in this 44.5. I think it's gonna be a close game, but I think, you know, guys like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are susceptible to the big explosion plays in this Miami offense to put up points. And this Patriots offense is one of the most consistent in the league, as you saw last year, in putting up points per drive and every drive, or in the majority of drives here. So I'm liking the over at 44.5. And again, I'm going to tease this down a little bit to make it even safer, but expect a good one here in Miami. Another game, even closer than the last one, is indicated by the spread, is the Panthers and new league quarterback Baker Mayfield taking on his former team, the Cleveland Browns. This line opened up for Cleveland -1.5. And the money's been moving to the Panthers as that line has shifted 2 points in their favor now, as the Panthers are now the favorite this game. This is something that, you know, if Deshaun Watson's playing this game, with this Browns team. They're going to win this game easy with how good their offensive line is, how good their running backs are with Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. They got Amari Cooper from the Cowboys. And that's going to help their offense a lot. They have one of the best defensive units in football. Myles Garrett at DN with Jadeveon Clowney on the other side of the line with him. Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome at cornerback. Just a lot of talent all around, top tier talent all around for this team. But with Jacoby Brissett, I'm not sure they're going to be able to get it done. They're definitely going to do everything they can to rely on the run game here to win this game and just control the clock, control time of possession, and keep the ball out of Christian McCaffrey's hands and that Panthers offense. But I think this Panthers defense, and especially their front seven, led by Brian Burns, is going to be enough to slow down this Browns offense and keep the ball in their hand and let the Panthers offense go to work with Christian McCaffrey's coming back from injury, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, two explosive wide receivers. And they improved on their O-line to start giving their quarterback some time. And this year, to me, Baker Mayfield, who I think when he does have time and he is healthy, is a very competent quarterback. Like I said, improved that offensive line, which was much needed because last year the Panthers led the league in amount of dropbacks that were pressured while passing. Obviously, that over a quarter of the time the quarterback dropped back, they were getting pressured. So it's no wonder you're not, winning games and making accurate throws when that's happening. Again, proved O-line, Christian McCaffrey, explosive offense with guys like Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore with a solid enough defense. J.C. Horn, second-year cornerback that was having a very promising year until he got hurt. Really like him to step up this year in the secondary too. I think the Panthers are going to win this game due in large part to a big output from Christian McCaffrey. Next, we got the 49ers on the road, big favorites against the Bears, who had one of the worst off seasons in football, in my opinion. Really didn't like the moves they made. Lost a ton of guys, especially on their D-line. They lost Khalil Mack. They lost Akeem Hicks, Bilal Nichols, Eddie Golson. Those are four key guys on their defense and in that front seven that are gone, and they're going to sorely miss them this game against the Niners, whose MO is running the ball down your throats behind Trent Williams, that great O-line there. Doesn't matter who's running the ball in that backfield, whether it's Deebo Samuel or the running back. They know how to get big chunk plays in the run game, and that's what I expect them to do against the Bears. Much like the Colts against the Texans, I expect the Niners to run the ball all over the Bears. I don't think they have nearly enough firepower on offense, especially at the wide receiver position. I do not believe that Darnell Mooney is good enough to be your team's number one option, especially with his size there. I do think him being the slot will help them a lot in terms of schemes and, opening up the playbook a little bit for him. But I don't think he's good enough to be the number one guy. I think he needs a little more help, and the Bears need a little bit more help at the wide receiver position. And while the highlight in this offense is David Montgomery, I think this front seven, led by Joey Bosa and Fred Warner, are going to be good enough to stop the Bears' run game. I don't think the Bears are going to get a good pass game, like I said, and I don't think they're going to be able to stop this 49ers rush. So I think the Niners steamroll these guys and kind of ease Trey Lance in this offense by running the ball just about every play at will and with ease against this Bears team. And another thing about this Bears team, I talked about Nick Bosa, one of the game's best pass rushers on the 49ers side of the football. The Bears led the league last year in the highest sack percentage on offense, which is just not going to help you. If you're not going to be able to run the ball effectively on first and second down here, and you get yourself in longer passing situations, and you're getting sacked every time, that is just a recipe for disaster. That's kind of the direction I see this game going, and I see the Niners beating the Bears easily the first game of the year and getting Trey Lance some confidence there at quarterback, loving the Niners -7 on the road. A game with two teams that I think are going to be trending upwards this year, the Jaguars taking on the newly named Commanders in Washington. And I think it's just something to note that obviously the Jaguars got the number one pick in the draft the last 2 seasons, one of them being Trevor Lawrence. And so this team has been the worst team in football the last 2 seasons, but they are projected 6.5 wins this year, which, is a breath of fresh air if you're a fan of the Jaguars. They're expected to do better than the last few seasons, which you should if you're drafting effectively and, being effective in free agency, which is what the Jaguars did. My favorite offseason signing for these guys, they made the big signing of Christian Kirk at wide receiver, but I think that's completely overshadowed by them getting Terron Armstead, one of the game's best guards, both in the run game and in the pass game. So not Terron Armstead, I'm sorry, Brandon Sheriff, who they got from the Commanders, one of the best guards in the game. That's really going to help Trevor Lawrence in this offense. They get Travis Etienne back at running back. I think he's going to be a great dual threat option out of the backfield. This Commanders team really disappointed me last year. I thought they, had everything in place to make a big leap. Loved Terry McLaurin at wide receiver. Was really excited to see Antonio Gibson there too at running back, but he kind of fell short. Now they get Carson Wentz at quarterback, so we'll see what they can do. This is a defensive front seven, especially in Washington, that I really believe in and think can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, especially when Chase Young is healthy. So I think this game, I like the 3.5 line. I think it is about fair where it should be, but I think the Commanders are going to win this game due to a large part with I think the experience this team has over a young and inexperienced Jaguars team. This should be a really good game, as honestly any AFC West matchup probably will be this year, with every team in that division being insanely talented. Raiders plus 3.5 going to LA taking on the Chargers. Both offenses are really good, especially with the addition of Davante Adams in Las Vegas. I think the difference this game is going to be the defense, and when you have two really high-powered offenses. What I loved that the Chargers did this offseason, they got Khalil Mack to pair with Joey Bosa at defensive end. That is going to be a nightmare for any offensive line, especially the Raiders offensive line that was bottom 10 in the league last year. And then they got the game's best cornerback last year, at least in that Belichick defense, and J.C. Jackson. You pair him with Derwin James, who they just gave a massive contract extension to, and this is suddenly one of the better defensive units in football to go along with one of the best offenses in football. Not only do they have great running back in Austin Ekeler, guys like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen at wide receiver, but Justin Herbert at quarterback is looking to make a big leap this year. I think he's third or fourth, or probably the fourth or fifth favorite to be MVP this year. Justin Herbert last year, the only quarterback not named Tom Brady to throw for 5,000 yards. So this guy can sling the football all around the field in an offense that loves to pass the ball. This Chargers offense is one of the top 5 teams in points and number 2 in points scored per drive. So again, offense this game is going to be off the charts, but it's going to be the Chargers defense here that is going to make the difference, and the reason why I believe the Chargers will win this game. But I do like the Raiders plus 3.5 because I think they're a good team. They got good stuff on defense as well, especially on their defensive line with Max Crosby, who led the league last year in pressures and all-pro last year. And then they just got Chandler Jones on the other side of him. So definitely a good defensive end tandem and in their own right that will, put some pressure on the quarterback. But I think the Chargers offensive line is well suited to handle that. I think the Chargers win this game here. This game with New York taking on Tennessee, two teams I really don't think are going to be in the playoffs at the end of this season. This 6.5 spread, one of the largest we're seeing this week. I think it's a little misleading in terms of people think the talent discrepancy on these two teams is larger than it is. According to Vegas, the Giants are projected 7 wins this year. Titans are only projected 9 after having the best record in the AFC last year. And this is after, losing A.J. Brown, Julio Jones on offense. I'm not so sure how much I can really believe in the Titans this year. Although if they're going to have a shot, head coach Mike Vrabel, one of the best in the business and one of my favorite coaches, is going to give them a chance to win no matter what talent and what personnel they have in the field. With losing AJ Brown, you're going to have to really rely on Derrick Henry in the run game in this game and throughout the rest of the season to kind of prop up this offense. They have a sneaky good defense there in Tennessee. But I'm just not sure how much offensive output they're going to get with now Robert Woods and Burks, their wide receiver they drafted in the first round after trading away AJ Brown. I like the Giants plus 6.5 here because I don't believe in all the talent they have in Tennessee, but I do think they're going to win this game because of the better coaching, better winning culture, and just Mike Vrabel knows how to win games that he shouldn't. So like the Titans here, but I don't think they're going to win by a touchdown or more. This game I will for sure be watching in a great matchup with Kansas City taking on the Cardinals here in Arizona and Glendale, host of the Super Bowl this year. The one thing worth noting, and just anecdotally, is the Chiefs always seem to start out the season a little slow, and the Cardinals always seem to start out the season hot and kind of dwindle out as the season progresses. And there's a couple of reasons I think about this for each team. For the Chiefs, I think the main reason this is well documented is that Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator there in Kansas City, is a very complex and ever-changing defense, especially in the secondary. So it takes a while for the guys on that defensive unit to get used to and be comfortable with that defense. And with the Cardinals, I think it's all about Kyler Murray while they start out so strong. This is a dude that when he's healthy and when he's fresh is one of the most dynamic and explosive quarterbacks in this game. But as the season, weighs on and you get guys like Chris Jones that are hitting this dude that are twice his size, it starts to weigh in him and the injuries start to add up and the aches and illnesses, ailments start to pile on and makes him a little less effective. So I expect the Cardinals to start out the season hot again. I expect the Chiefs to kind of start out flat again, especially when they lost two of their best players in secondary, Tyrann Mathieu and Charvarius Ward at cornerback. Getting new inexperienced guys in the Steve Spagnuolo defense is going to be trouble for them to start the year, especially with, again, an opponent that starts the season so hot like the Cardinals. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals win this game outright, but I really like the Cardinals plus 3.5 in the situation. And honestly, I think the Cardinals are going to win this game. That's what my gut's telling me. But I'm definitely, out of everybody, I'm very down on the Chiefs this year. They're still going to make the playoffs. It's hard not to make the playoffs when you get Andy Reid calling plays for Patrick Mahomes. But I don't think their secondary is going to be good enough this year to warrant a divisional title this year. I think they're going to give up the crown and the throne of the AFC West to either the Chargers or the Broncos. Great divisional matchup here, as it seems it always is when Aaron Rodgers travels to Minnesota, as the Packers are looking to start the season hot, which they did not do last year after a beatdown against the Saints. I'm surprised to see the -2 here initially for the Packers, but as I thought about it more, it makes sense given the loss of Davante Adams to Oakland or to Las Vegas and how thin the wide receiver room in Green Bay is. That being said, you'd expect the Packers to really lean on the run game, not only this game, but throughout the rest of the season behind David Bakhtiari, that offensive line, and then A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones at running back. What I really love about the Packers team this year, though, is how strong their defensive unit is. They got guys at every tier of the defense that are as strong at their position. Preston Smith at D end, very solid. Kenny Clark at D tackle. He's a Pro Bowler. Linebacker, one of the, I think, first team All Pro last year. Devondre Campbell, a middle linebacker. Jaire Alexander, who's consistently, when healthy, the highest rated cornerback for PFF grade. Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos at safety. Like, these guys are stacked across the board on defense. And I think Aaron Rodgers, who commits so few turnovers, he does not give the other team the game. If you're going to beat the Packers, you are going to have to win the game on your own. He's not going to give you the win by turning the ball over. I think with Rodgers' savviness, how good their run game is and how good their defense is, they're going to beat a lot of teams this year, especially a team like the Vikings that are really weak on defense, which is uncharacteristic of them. Obviously, on offense, they have great talent with Justin Jefferson, who I think will be the game's #1 receiver this year. Adam Thielen, who's been solid for them for a long time and a great route runner. And Dalvin Cook, one of the game's most explosive running backs. The big question is always going to be about Kirk Cousins in this offense and how or if he steps up. A lot of people like to rag on Kirk Cousins, but it was interesting to see that last year he was actually the fourth highest ranked quarterback in terms of passer rating, which I thought was very surprising. Obviously, when he shines, he's really good. When he's accurate, he's hitting his receivers, but there are times he seems to fall apart, especially in the bigger games against the pass rush. So I think the Packers here for all those reasons, and I think the Packers are going to win this game. I think they're going to cover this -2. I think Rodgers is going to have another great season and really just know how to, win games with a little bit less talent at wide receiver than he's used to. And the last game we will talk about, Russell Wilson's quick return to Seattle in week 1. As he's now the quarterback of the Broncos, traveling to Drew Lock's, against Drew Lock's return against the Broncos here, as the Broncos are the 4.5-point favorites on the road against Seattle. This line originally opened up actually at 5.5. So, public favoring the Seahawks here. And I think it's for good reason. Just a little bit of a revenge game. Monday night under the lights at home where they have such a big advantage with their crowd there. But I don't know if it's going to be enough to cover this -4 and cover this +4.5 for them, as I think the Seattle team is one of the worst in few of talent team in football. I don't think Drew Lock's that great at quarterback. I don't think they have solid running backs. I don't think without a solid offensive line and a solid quarterback that having DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett at wide receiver is a huge advantage anymore. But the void of talent of this team's on defense. They've always been propped up by middle linebacker Bobby Wagner, who's basically playing quarterback on the other side of the football. He's just so good at diagnosing the play, so effective in the run game and in the pass game that he was just the glue of that defense. And now that he's gone, I don't think they're really going to be able to hold it together, especially not against the run game. So I just think the Seahawks team is just not going to have enough to, compete with this Broncos team that before getting Russell Wilson they were a very solid team all around. Going 7-10 in the AFC West last year, given their quarterback play, was very impressive. And now they have one of the game's most consistent quarterbacks, Russell Wilson. I think the sky is the limit for this Broncos team. And I think they have a legitimate shot at winning this AFC West with Wilson at the helm. So I look to him to get the ball at guys like Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. Javonte Williams at running back did have a breakout second year, as a lot of people are predicting, and just an absolutely incredible secondary in Denver, highlighted by Justin Simmons, who I think is the best safety in football, and then Patrick Surtain, one of the best young cornerbacks in the game too. Going to be a no-fly zone as it has been in Denver for the past 3 years, and without a run game, I don't know how Seattle is really going to put up points here. Look for the Broncos to steamroll the Seahawks on Monday night this week. So week one card, talk about all those games. We'll talk about the games I want to bet on here. I'd like to keep it a little cautious in week one just because I like to, build data in my mind and see these teams before I start throwing around lots of money and making bold predictions. So what I like here, especially is my lock, Ravens -1, teasing that down along with the over in Miami there. Again, I think the Ravens here with Lamar Jackson in the contract year, the Ravens are a team that are so solid, so well coached, and so put together. They consistently beat the teams they shouldn't. That's the Jets, especially with Zach Wilson either going to be out this game or definitely going to be hobbled with that knee. And then pairing that with the Patriots over, I like the firepower that the Dolphins have on offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And again, going back to that Patriots stat, second highest percentage of drives in the league that convert into points, and sixth best in the league in points per drive. So I really like that. This game ends up 23-20, which I'm expecting one of these teams to win this game by 3 points. That over hits, so I'm not too worried about that one, quite honestly. And then other teaser, Cardinals +9.5. Again, look back in the last few years, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals start out hot every season, and they fade away at the end of the year, and people wonder why. It's because Kyler Murray is 5'10", 180, and he's getting hit by 6'5", 300-pound linemen every single game behind his terrible offensive line. So yeah, he's going to get worse as the season goes on. But when Kyler Murray's fresh, he is one of the game's best. Again, against the Chiefs secondary that I think is missing a couple key players this year and is always slow to start the year. So I think this +9.5 is one of the safest picks you can get in a teaser. And then the Niners on the road against the Bears, a little bit riskier just because rookie quarterback, Justin Fields is hopefully can be better this year as someone that's rooting for the guy. But again, I think this Niners team is going to run the football all day over against this Bears defensive front seven that is out. I said 4. They're out 5 key guys on their defense last year. Danny Trevathan at linebacker, Khalil Mack, obviously defensive end, Eddie Golson, Bilal Nichols, and Akeem Hicks at defensive tackle. How are they going to stop the run without their 3 best defensive tackles? And then Khalil Mack in a linebacker. Roquan Smith cannot do it all for this front seven. And for that reason, I think the Niners -5.5 and the Cardinals +9.5 is also a great bet. So that was a lot, but we're taking on week one. And I really enjoyed making this video. Really looking forward to week one of the NFL season. Definitely subscribe and keep watching these videos.